Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-Sharakaya Chakshurunditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namasreshtham Madhumapi Shachiputram Prasrupam Rupam Tasya Brigamurupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girvaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Krupaya Shri Gurun Tam Natosmi Namaste Gurudevaya Sarvasiddhi Pradayine Sarvamangala Rupaya Sarvananda Vidhayine Yam Pravrajanta Manupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Juhava Utrete Tanmayataya Taravo Vivitu Stam Sarvabhutardem Tanatosmi हे श्री गुरु ज्ञानदीन बंधु स्वानंद दाता करुणैक सिंधु वृंदावनाहिता प्रणय प्रचार प्रायस्व भो जगन्नाथ गुरो संसार बंधिना दग्धं मां कालदष्टं च त्वामहं शरणं रथा राधा सम्मुख संशक्तिं सखी संग निवासिनीं तामहं सततं वन्दे गुरुरूपां परां सखीं वैराग्यभक्तिरसं प्रयत्नैरपायं मामनिष्टमन्धं कृपां दुःखदुःखी सनातनं त्वं प्रभुमाश्रयामि. First of all, offer my millions of obeisances to the feet of Srimati Guru Pad Padma Nitila Prashthaya Guru Shishya Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Kirandi Swami Shishya Bhaktivedanta Dandi Maharaj Namnishta Santosh Niruddas Prabhuji Shri Ganga Mata Goswami, all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis are gathered here for online class. Please accept my humble obeisances. Verse number 66. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya na chayuktasya bhavana na cha bhavana na cha bhavayantah shanti ashantasya kutah sukham. Nasti, there is not buddhi, intelligence aimed at the realization of the Supreme Lord. Ayuktasya, for one whose mind is disconnected and thus uncontrolled. No. Cha also ayuktasya, for such a disconnected and unintelligent person. Bhavana, meditation on the Supreme Lord. Nor cha also abhava yataha, for the non-meditative person. Shanti, peace. Ashantasya, for a person who is not peaceful. Kutah, where? Sukham, happiness. One whose mind is uncontrolled, however, does not have intelligence to understand the service of the soul. Such an unintelligent person is unable to meditate on the Supreme Lord. A person unable to perform such meditation cannot attain peace. And without peace, where is the possibility of happiness? Sarartha Varshini. Shri Krishna is speaking this verse, beginning with Nasti, to indirectly strengthen the previous verse conclusion. The intelligence of a person whose mind is uncontrolled will not become fixed in the self. Such a person is devoid of intelligence and unable to meditate on the Supreme Lord. Abhava yataha means that one who does not meditate cannot have peace. In other words, he cannot become detached from the objects of the senses. A disturbed person can find neither happiness nor pleasure in the self. So this is the verse, and also uh, in this verse is nasti buddhira yuktasya na cha yuktasya bhavana na cha bhavayatah shanti ashantasya kutah sukham na asti. There cannot be buddhi, transcendental intelligence, ayuktasya, of one who is not connected with Krishna consciousness. No, not. Cha, and ayuktasya, of one devoid of Krishna consciousness. Bhavana, fixed mind in happiness. No, not. Cha, and abhavayataha, of one who is not fixed. Shanti, peace. Ashantasya, of the unpeaceful. Kutaha, where is Sukham, happiness. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there is no possibility of peace. So it is confirmed in the fifth chapter that when one understands that Krishna is the only enjoyer of all the good results of sacrifice and penance, and that he is the proprietor of all universal manifestation, that he is the real friend of all living entities, then only can one have real peace. Therefore, if one is not in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be a final goal for the mind. Disturbance is due to want of of an ultimate goal. And when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring about a peace. Therefore, one who is engaged without a relationship with Krishna is certainly always in distress and is without peace. However much one may make a show of peace and future advancement in life, Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition, which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna. So this is a very nice purport. And so Bhagavad Gita, actually, sometimes some good applications also. I'm just trying out some applications, and I was seeing this on internet. 2.56 and 266. नास्तिर्बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयता शांति अजान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्. So here, ayuktasya, for a person without self-control, nasti, there is no buddhi, wisdom, self-knowledge. Ayuktasya, for such a person, devoid of this intelligence, na cha asti, there is no bhavana, meditation on the Lord, purity of thought. Abhav, abhavayataha, for one without meditation, na cha asti, there is no shanti, peace. Ashantasya, for a person who has no peace, kutaha, where is sukham, happiness. A person bereft of self-control can have neither wisdom nor meditation. Without meditation, there is no peace, and without peace, where is the hope of happiness? So for the person of uncontrolled mind, there is no intelligence fixed on the soul, and no meditation on the Paramatma. Without meditation, he has no peace. Without peace, there is bliss. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? So Krishna makes his statements clear by stating um, by stating the effects of the opposite condition. For one who has not controlled the mind, ayuktasya, there is no intelligence, no pragya fixed on the soul. For one who not having such pragya arising from controlled mind, meditation on the Supreme Lord, bhavana, also is not possible. Not performing meditation, abhavataha, he does not have peace, the cessation of agitation from sense objects. This person without peace does not have bliss, sukham, from the soul. So this is actually this particular. So so next verse we'll take now. So we have to meditate on Bhagavan. Indriyana hi charat he, because you are as Vayu, an unfavorable wind, Harati carries away, Nabam, a boat, Ambasi on the ocean, Tadot, similarly, Indriyanam of the senses, Charataham, that wanders about their objects, yet whichever sense, Manaha, the mind, Anuvidhyate, follows, Tat, that sense, Harati carries away, lures towards its object. Pragyam, the wisdom, intelligence, Asya, of that person bereft of self-control. As a boat on the ocean is thrown off course by an unfavorable wind, similarly, the wisdom of a person lacking self-control is carried away by even one of the roaming senses that the mind might follow. So, the mind which follows one of the moving senses steals away the intelligence as wind moves the boat on the water. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away man's intelligence. So this verse examines the person with no intelligence due to lack of control of the mind. Ayuktasya buddhi described in the previous verse. Among all the senses moving towards their respective sense objects, the mind follows after one sense. In this way, a person follows each of the senses. Such a mind takes away the intelligence or pragya of the person, just as an unfavorable wind takes away a boat of course, which is being steered somewhere on the water. Hmm. So here, Srila Bhakti-Vidanta Swami Maharaj is telling that unless all of the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, even one of them engaged in the sense gratification can deviate the devotee from the path of transcendental advancement. As mentioned in the life of Maharaj Ambarish, all the senses must be engaged in Krishna consciousness, for that is the correct technique for controlling the mind. So here, very nice explanation is given by Srila Bhakti-Vidanta Swami Maharaj. Important verses. These are very important verses. Indriyanam hi charatam janmanonuvidhiyate tastadasya harati pragyam vayurnabamimam vasi. As a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Indriyanam means of the senses, he certainly charatam while roaming, yat with which manaha, the mind, anuvidhiyate, becomes constantly engaged, tat that, asya, his, harati, takes away, pragyam, intelligence, vayu, wind, navam, a boat, eva, like ambasi, on the water. As a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Unless all of the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, even one of them engaged in sense gratification can deviate a devotee from the path of transcendental advancement. As mentioned in the life of Maharaj Ambarish, all of the senses must be engaged in Krishna consciousness, for that is the correct technique for controlling the mind. So here, Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano vidhiyate tadasya harati pragyam vayurnabamimam vasi. Indriyanam of the senses, he certainly charatam while wandering to the sense objects, yat which goes towards any particular sense, manaha the mind, anuvidyate follows, tad that, asya of that person of uncontrolled senses, harati, it carries away, pragyam, intelligence, vayu, the wind, nabam, like a boat, eva, as ambasi, on the water. Just as the wind sweeps away a boat on the water, the mind of an unrestrained person runs behind any one of the senses that wanders towards its sense object. A person with an uncontrolled mind does not have intelligence. Shri Bhagavan establishes this point by speaking the words beginning with Indriyanam. The mind follows any one of the senses as it wanders unrestrictedly amongst its respective sense objects. Such a person is forced to follow all of the senses being controlled by the mind. In such a state, the mind is likened to an unfavorable wind sweeping away a boat on the water because it carries away a person's intelligence. So, verse number 68. Tasmadhyasya mahabhavo nigrutani sarvasha, nigrihitani sarvasha, indriyani indriyarthebhya tasya pragya pratisthita. Tasmad, therefore, yasya, whose, mahabhavo, or mighty arm one, nigrihitani, unrestrained, sarvasha, in every respect, indriyani, senses, indriyarthebhya, from the sense objects, tasya, his, pragya, intelligence, pratishtha, fixed. Therefore, a mighty am one whose senses are completely restrained from their respective sense objects, is of fixed intelligence. Yasya means that whose, that those whose minds are already under control are Sthita Pragya. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, O mighty Amba, just as conquer your enemies, you should also conquer your mind. So Krishna is telling Arjuna to conquer his mind. Tasmadhyastha mahabhavo vikrutani sarvasha indriyani nirarthabhyas tasya pratnya pratisthita. Tasma, therefore, yasya whose mahabhavo, O mighty Amba, nikruhitani, so curved down, sarvasha, all around. Indriyani, the senses, indriya arthibhya, from sense objects, his pragya, intelligence, pratishtha. Therefore, O mighty Hanuman, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is said to be of state intelligence. As enemies are curbed by superior force, similarly the senses can be curbed not by any human endeavor, but only by keeping them engaged in the service of the Lord. One who has understood this, that only by Krishna consciousness is one really established in intelligence, that one should practice this art under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, is called sadhaka, or a suitable candidate for liberation. So here, verse number 268. Tasmadhyasya mahabhavo nigruhitani sarvasha indriyani indriyarthabhya tasya pragya pratisthita. A mahabhavo, or subduer of the enemy. Tasma, therefore, yasya, he whose indriyani, senses, nigritani, are withdrawn, sarvasha, fully, indriyarthebhya, from the sense objects, tasya, his, pragya, wisdom, pratisthita, is firmly established. Therefore, O subduer of the enemy, one whose senses are fully withdrawn from their objects, is a person of firmly established wisdom. He who completely restricts the senses from the sense objects, O mighty Amban, is fixed in pragya. Therefore, O mighty Amban, one whose senses are restrained from their objects, is certainly of steady intelligence. He who controls his mind, restricts his senses from sense objects, is fixed in intelligence. O mighty Amban, Mahabaho, just as you control your enemies with your strength, you should also control your mind. So here Bhakti-Vidanta Swami Maharaj also given purport, Srila Gurudev, Srila Vishwanath Thakur Pad, Srila Bhakti-Vidanta Maharaj. So next verse, Yanisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Sanyami Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani Sanisha Pashyato Mune. Ya, what? Nisha is night, Sarva, all, Bhutanam, of living entities. Tasyam, in that, Jagarti is wakeful, Sanyami, the self-controlled. Yasyam, in which Jagrati are awake, Bhutani, all beings. Sa, that is, Nisha, night, Pashyata, for the introspective. Mune, sage. What is night for all beings is a time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. There are two classes of intelligent men. The one is intelligent in material activities for sense gratification, other is introspective and awake to the cultivation of self-realization. Activities of the introspective sage or thoughtful man are night for persons materially absorbed. Materialistic persons remain asleep in such a night due to their ignorance of self-realization. The introspective sage remains alert in the night of the materialistic man. The sage feels transcendental pleasure in the gradual advancement of spiritual culture, whereas the man in materialistic activities, being asleep to self-realization, dreams of varieties of sense pleasure, feeling sometimes happy and sometimes distressed in his sleeping condition. The introspective man is always indifferent to materialistic happiness and distress. He goes on with his self-realization activities undisturbed by material reaction. Yanisha sarvbhutanam tasyam jagrati sanyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sapanisha pashyato mune. Sarvabhutanam yanisha, that which is night for all living beings who immersed in ignorance remain asleep to spiritual knowledge. Tasyam, in that night, Sanyami, the self-disciplined person, Jagarti, remains awake, joyful in his spiritual intelligence. Yasyam, that mundane intelligence in which Bhutani, all living beings, Jagrati, remain awake, experience the pleasure and pains, sorrows and delusions of worldly life. Sa, such mundane intelligence is Nisha, night, Munehe, for the sages, for the sage, Pashyata, who sees the futility of mundane endeavors and remains indifferent to the dualities. That which is day for the self controlled sage is night for all beings, and that which is day for all beings is night for the sage who sees. The living beings absorbed in mundane life are asleep to the spiritual joy of the self of the realized soul, who remains indifferent to their quest for the pleasures of the senses devoid of spiritual joy. The Sthita Prajna is awake in the night when all other living entities sleep. The night of the observant Sthita Prajna is the time during which the all living entities are awake. What is night for all beings in the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. So Sthita Prajna is able to control his senses very naturally. There are two types of intelligence, that directed towards soul and that directed towards matter. The intelligence directed towards the soul is night for all uh, other entities. Just as in the night, people sleeping do not know what is happening at a time. So all living entities do not know the things which are being pursued by the intelligence directed towards the soul. But during that night, the Sthita Prajna or Sanyami controlling his senses is awake, not sleeping. In other words, he directly realizes the bliss from fixing his intelligence on the soul. When the living entities are awake, with intelligence directed towards the material sense objects, they realize directly the happiness, lamentation, and bewilderment of those sense objects upon which their intelligence is fixed. They are not sleeping, but that is night for the Muni, the Sthita Prajna, who does not experience fixing his intelligence on those objects at all. But he does see those objects. He looks upon Pashyataha, all those sense objects which give happiness and distress to the people bound in samsara with disinterest. This means that he accepts the required sense objects for his survival without being affected. So, this is a very nice purport out here. So, Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagrati Sanyami Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani Sa Nisha Pashyato Muni. Ya, with spiritual intelligence, Nisha, like night, Sarva Bhutanam, for all beings, Tasyam, in that night, Jagrati is awake. Sanyami, a self-controlled man of fixed intelligence. Yasyam, in which state which is directed to the search of sense objects, Jagrati remains awake. Bhutani, ordinary beings, Sa, that material intelligence, Nisha, night, Pashyata, for the enlightened, Munehi, thinker. Spiritual intelligence, which is directed towards the soul, is like night for the materialistic common people who are enchanted by the material energy. One who is Sthita Prajna, however, remains awake in that intelligence. And when intelligence is absorbed in sense objects, the common person remains awake. For the sage who perceives transcendental reality, that consciousness is the darkest night. In other words, such a person accepts sense objects in an appropriate way without being attached to them. It is natural for one whose intelligence is fixed to control the senses. For this reason, Sri Bhagavan is speaking this verse beginning with Ya. Intelligence is of two types: intelligence inclined towards the self, Atma Pravana, and intelligence inclined towards material sense objects, Vishaya Pravana. Intelligence that is inclined towards the self is like night for all conditioned souls. Just as the sleeping person does not know what happens at night, similarly, the bewildered souls do not know what one attains by this spiritual intelligence. But one who is of fixed intelligence remains awake in such a night. He who directly experiences the bliss related to the intelligence fixed in the self. The conditioned souls remain awake in the second type of intelligence, which is directed towards the attainment of material enjoyment, and they directly experience lamentation, bewilderment, and so on, according to their respective absorption. They are not asleep to it. Wise persons of fixed in spiritual intelligence, however, do not experience anything in such a night. They remain indifferent to the sense objects that give happiness and distress to materialistic persons, and remaining controlled and detached, only accept those sense objects that are needed for their maintenance. Sarartha Varshini Prakashika Vritti. Those who are of fixed spiritual intelligence naturally achieve perfection in controlling all the senses. They are knowledgeable persons in the real sense. On the other hand, the intelligence of ignorant people who identify the body with the self remains absorbed in sense objects. Such persons who are attached to sense objects are called materialistic or ignorant. The Skanda Puran states, Adnyanam tu Nisha Prokta Diva Dhyana Udiryati. Knowledge is like day and ignorance is like night. Everything in the kingdom of that most wonderful controller, Shri Bhagavan, is wonderful. What is night for one person is day for another. For an owl, night is like a day, while for a crow it is night. Night. An owl sees only at night, not during the day. Similarly, a man blinded by ignorance cannot have the illuminated vision of one who knows the absolute truth. Those who know the absolute, however, always see Sri Bhagavan, the radiant personification of all knowledge. They never contemplate objects of the senses. Just as the lotus leaf never becomes wet, even though it remains in water, similarly, one who is Sthita Pragya never becomes attached to sense objects, even while he is living in contact with them. Verse 70. Apuryamaणम् achalam pratishtham samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashantimapnoti na kamakami. Apuryamaणम्, completely full in all directions. Achala pratishtham, fixed and unmoved. Samudram, the ocean. Apa, the waters of many rivers. Pravishanti, enter, yadvat, just as, tadvat, similarly, kamaha, the agitations of the senses, yam, whom, a person of fixed intelligence, pravishanti, they enter, survey all, saha, he, shantim, peace, apnoti, attains. No, not kamakami, who desires to fulfill his own desires. Just as countless rivers flow into the ocean, which is full and always still, without causing any disturbance to it, similarly, various desires flow into the mind of one who is still of. Yet his equilibrium is never disturbed. Such persons alone can attain peace, not those who strive always to fulfill their desires. Saratha Varshini, Nirlepta, or remaining unattached to sense objects, indicates that one does not become disturbed even after coming in contact with a sense object. Sri Bhagavan explains this idea by speaking the verse beginning with Apurya Manam. All the different rivers pour so much water into the ocean during the rainy season, they cannot cause it to overflow. Achala Pratishtham means whose boundary is not crossed. Similarly, various sense objects also present themselves as enjoyable and desirable to one who is fixed in spiritual intelligence. But just as water pouring into or flowing out of the ocean makes no difference to the ocean, similarly, those who remain unaffected both while enjoying sense objects and when bereft of them are called Sita Pragya. Only they attain peace, that is knowledge. So, very nice verse. Apuryamaणम् achalam pratishtham. Apuryamaणम् achalam pratishtham samudramapam So, Apuryamaणम् achalam pratishtham Samudramah pravishan yadvat tadvat kamayam pravashan sarve sanyamabno tinakakami. Apuryamanam, always being filled. Achala pratishtham, steadily situated. Samudram, the ocean. Apaha, waters. Pravishanti, enter. Tadvat, as. Tadvat, so. Kamaha, desires. Yam, unto. Pravishanti, enter. Survey, all. Saha, that person. Shanti, peace. Apnoti, achieves. No, not. Kama, kami. who desires to fulfill desires. One who desires to fulfill desires. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, being filled with so much more water, but the ocean remains the same, steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limit of its brink. That is also true of a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one has the material body, the demands of the body for sense gratification will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. A Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. Therefore, he is like the ocean, always full in himself. Desires may come to him like the waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he is steady in his activities and is not even slightly disturbed by desires for sense gratification. This is the proof of a Krishna conscious man, one who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification. Although the desires are present, because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady like the ocean and therefore enjoy full peace. Others, however, who fulfill desires even up to the limit of liberation, what to speak of material success, never attain peace. The fruity workers, the salvationists, and also the yogis who are after mystic powers are all unhappy because of the unfulfilled desires. But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord and he has no desire to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from the so called material bondage. The devotees of Krishna have no material desires and therefore they are in perfect peace. Apuryamaणम् achalam apratishtham samudramapa. Apuryamaणम् achalam pratishtham samudramapa pravishanti yadvat तद्वत् कामाय प्रवशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी. Yadvat as apaha water pravishanti enters samudram the ocean apuryamanam which is always full achala pratishtham it remains steady its water never crossing the shore. Tadvat similar is yam that sage who survey kama all desires pravishanti enter to be enjoyed, for they cannot disturb his mind. Sah, he alone, apnoti attains shantim peace too, but kama kami, a person who nurtures desires, not that apnoti cannot achieve that. As the ocean remains full and unchanged, though many rivers and streams enter into it, the person of firmly established wisdom attains peace despite all desires entering him. But a person who nurtures desires cannot know peace. Just as the rivers enter the ocean, which has fixed shores and is never quite full, so the objects of enjoyment enter into the sthita pragya, but it remains peaceful. This is not so for the desires of those objects. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled uh, but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. This verse describes the sthita pragya's condition of not being affected or agitated when he accepts the sense objects. Just as in the rainy season, rivers, apa, here and there enter into the ocean, almost filling it up. A means almost, puryamanam filled, but not being able to completely fill it up, not being able to go beyond the shore. Achala Achala Pratishtham. In a similar manner, the objects of sense enjoyment, kama, come to the Sthita Pragya for his enjoyment, but cannot disturb him. Just as whether the rivers enter or do not enter the ocean is not disturbed at all. The Sthita Pragya sa remains undisturbed whether he gets objects of enjoyment or not. He attains the stage of Jnanam, Shanti. So, this is the purport, and So, next verse will carry on. Vihaya kaman yah sarvan puman charati nispruha nirmamo nirahankara sashantim adhigachati. Vihaya, giving up kaman, material desires for sense gratification. Yahu, sarvan, all. Puman, a person. Charati, lives. Nispruha, desireless. Nirmamaha, without a sense of proprietorship. Nirahankara, without false ego. Saha, he. Shantim, perfect peace. Adhigachati, attains. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, is devoid of false ego. He alone can attain real peace. To become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. To understand one's actual position as the eternal servitor of Krishna, without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world, is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, therefore everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. Arjun did not want to fight for his own sense gratification, but when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. For himself, there was no desire to fight, but for Krishna, the same Arjuna fought to his best ability. Desire for the satisfaction of Krishna is really desirelessness. It is not an artificial attempt to abolish desires. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but he does have to change the quality of the desires. A materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. And therefore, he does not falsely claim proprietorship over anything. This transcendental knowledge is based on self-realization, namely knowing perfectly well that every living entity is the eternal part and parcel of Krishna in, in spiritual identity. And therefore, the eternal position of the living entity is never on the level of Krishna or greater him. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is the basic principle of real peace. Vihaya kaman yah sarvan pumanscharati nispruha nirmamo nirahankara sashantim adhigachati. So, Vihaya kaman yah sarvan pumanscharati nispruha nirmamo nirahankara sashantim adhigachati. Vihaya, giving up. Kaman, material desires. Yah, who, Sarvan, all, Puman, the person, Charati, wanders, Nispruha, free from hankering, Nirmamaha, without a sense of possessiveness, Nirankara, without false ego, Saha, that person of fixed intelligence, Shantim, peace, Adhikachati, attains. Only those who give up all desires and wander free from hankering, false ego, and possessiveness attain peace. Some people lose faith in material desires and no longer enjoy them. Sri Bhagavan is explaining this by speaking this verse beginning with the word Vihaya. Here, Nirankar and Nirmama means that only they who remain free from the false ego and possessiveness towards the body and anything related to it attain peace. Vihaya kaman sarvan Vihaya kaman sarvan Puman Sharati Nispruha Nirmamo Nirankara Sashanti Madhigachati. Yah Puman, that person who Vihaya, giving up Sarvan Kaman, all desires, Charati, moves through the world, Nispruha, free from hankering, Nirankara Nirmamaha, free from the false ego of I and mine in relation to the body and its attachments, having a divine relationship with the Supreme. So he, Adhigachati, attains Shantim, peace. Only a person who lives his life abandoning all desires, hankering, ego, and possessiveness, can know real peace. He who gives up all objects of enjoyment but carries out action without desires for them, being devoid of possessiveness and ego, attains peace, jnana. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification and who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, is devoid of false ego. He alone can attain real peace. This verse describes the person who does not enjoy the sense objects at all because he has no faith in them. He is devoid of possessiveness and ego regarding his body and objects related to the body. Nirmamaha Nirankara. So, verse 72. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapi Vimuyati Stitvasyam Antakalepi Brahma Nirvanam Ruchati. Esha, this Brahmi of one who has attained the spiritual Sthiti situation, Partha or Partha Arjuna, na not enam, this state, Prapya, attaining Vimuyati is bewildered, Sthitva, being situated, Asyam in this state, Antakale at the time of death, Api Eva, Brahma Nirvanam, spiritual emancipation, Ruchati, one attains. A Partha attaining Brahma in this way is called Brahmisthi. Becoming spiritually situated after attaining this state, one is no longer deluded. If at the time of death one is situated in this consciousness, even for a moment he attains liberation. Shri Bhagavan is now concluding this chapter with the words beginning with Asia. If spiritual emancipation, Brahma Nirvana, is achieved at the time of death by attaining the state of Brahma for even a moment, then what can be said of the result for one who achieved this state is childhood? Jnana and karma are specifically explained in this chapter, and bhakti is explained indirectly. Therefore, this chapter is called Summary of the Bhagavad-Gita. Thus ends the Bhavanuvad of Srila Vishwanath Thakur's Sarartha Tika, the commentary that gives pleasure to the devotees and is accepted by all saintly persons on the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Sarartha Varshini Prakashika Bhakti. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur states, this chapter is a summary of the Bhagavad Gita. Verse 1 to 10 introduce the nature of a person who is asking questions. Verse 12 to 30 give a description of spirit Atma and non-spirit Anatma. Verse 31st to 38 explains piety and sin within the Vedic system of prescribed duties known as Varnashram Dharma. Verse 39 till the end of the chapter describes selfless action wherein the fruits are offered to the Supreme Lord, or Nishkam Karma Yoga, by which knowledge of the self is attained. This is the goal of the aforementioned Jnana and Karma. There is also a description of the behavior of a person who is situated in this yoga. Thus ends the Sarartha Varshini Prakashika Bhakti by Sri Srimad Bhakti-Vidanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj on the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita. Vyaya kamaya sarvan pumam sharati nispruha nirmamo nirahankara sasanti madhigacchati. Vihaya, giving up kama and material desires for sense gratification. Yahu sarvan, all puman, a person charati lives nispruha, desireless, nirmama, without a sense of proprietorship, nirahankara, without false ego, sa he shantim, perfect peace, adhigacchati, attains. A person who has given up all desire for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. To become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. To understand one's actual position as the eternal servant of Krishna, without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world, is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, therefore everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. Arjun did not want to fight for his own self gratification, but when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. For himself, there was no desire to fight, but for Krishna, the same Arjun fought to his best ability. Desire for the satisfaction of Krishna is really desirelessness. It is not an artificial attempt to abolish desires. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but it does have to change the quality of the desires. A materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna, Isha Vasya Vidam Sarvam, and therefore he does not falsely claim proprietorship or anything. This transcendental knowledge is based on self-realization, namely knowing perfectly well that every living entity is the eternal part and parcel of Krishna in spiritual identity, and therefore the eternal position of the living entity is never on the level of Krishna or greater than him. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is the basic principle of real peace. ईशा ब्राह्म्य स्थिति पार्थ नयना प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थित्वास्याम् अंतकालेऽपि ब्रह्म निर्वाणं मृच्छति. Isha, this Brahmi spiritual city situation, Partha or son of Pruta, na never enam this prapya achieving vimuhyati, one is bewildered. Sthitva being situated, asyam in this, antakale at the end of life, api also Brahma Nirvanam, the spiritual kingdom of God, Richati one attains. This is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. Being so situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. One can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once, within a second, or one may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. It is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. Khatwanga Maharaj attained this state of life just a few minutes before his death by surrendering unto Krishna. Nirvana means ending the process of materialistic life. According to Buddhist philosophy, there is only void after the completion of this material life. But Bhagavad Gita teaches differently. Actual life begins after the completion of this material life. For the gross materialist, it is sufficient to know that one has to end this materialistic way of life. But for persons who are spiritually advanced, there is another life after this materialistic life. Before ending this life, if one fortunately becomes Krishna conscious, he at once attains the stage of Brahma Nirvana. There is no difference between the kingdom of God and the devotional service of the Lord. Since both of them are on the absolute plane, to be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord is to have attained the spiritual kingdom. In the material world, there are activities of sense gratification, whereas in the spiritual world, there are activities of Krishna consciousness. Attainment of Krishna consciousness, even during this life, is immediate attainment of Brahma. And one who is situated in Krishna consciousness has certainly already entered into the kingdom of God. Brahman is just the opposite of matter. Therefore, Brahmi Sthiti means not on the platform of material activities. Devotional service of the Lord is accepted in the Bhagavad Gita as the liberated stage. Therefore, Brahmi Sthiti is liberation from material bondage. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has summarized the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as being the contents for the whole text. In the Bhagavad Gita, the subject matters are Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. In the second chapter, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga have been clearly discussed, and a glimpse of Bhakti Yoga has also been given as the contents for the complete text. Thus, end the Bhakti-Vedanta purports of the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of its content. So this is a very nice chapter. We discussed Vihaya Kaman Yak Pumans Pumans Charati Nispruha Nirmamo Nirankara Shanti Nirigachati. So chapter 3 is Karma Yoga, yoga through the path of action. Arjuna Vacha Jayasi Cheta Karmanaste Mata Buddhir Tatkim Karmani Hore Mam Niyojayasi Keshava. Arjuna Vacha, Arjuna said, Jayasi is superior, Chet, if Karmana, then fruitier, Te, your Mata, consideration, Buddhi, intelligence that is directed towards transcendental bhakti, Janardana, O Janardana, Tat, then, Kim, why, Karmani in activity in the form of fighting, Ghore in this ghastly Mam, Me, Niyojasi, are you engaging, Keshava, O Keshava. O Janardana, if you consider that intelligence related to bhakti is beyond the force and the superior to fruitive work, then why, O Keshava, are you engaging me in this ghastly activity of warfare? So Arjuna is asking a question here, and now this is actually Karma Yoga, chapter 3. So we'll discuss this next time, chapter 3, verse 1. So we'll stop here today. Thank you so much for attending today's class. Hare Krishna. Vanchakam Patarubhasya Kripa Sindhubhasya Pradhanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Radhe. Hare Krishna. Dandavad Pranams. Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Dandavats.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Can you please do Jai Diwani? Thank you, Hare Krishna.
जय जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग गांधर्विका गिरिधारी श्री श्री राधा विनोद बिहार जी की जय। जय नितला पृष्ठ जगद्गुरु श्री श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज गुरुदेव की जय। नितला पृष्ठ विष्णु पाश श्री श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नितला पृष्ठ विष्णु पाश श्री श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदांत त्रिविक्रम गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नितला पृष्ठ विष्णु पाश श्री श्रीमद् गौरगंध गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नितला पृष्ठ विष्णु पाश श्री श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज की जय। आचार्य केशरी श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। सपरिकर जगत गुरु श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपी गोवर्धन द्वार शिवनात्मक श्री मंडल की जय। गंगा जमुना तुलसी भक्ति देवी की जय। जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा सुरसिंह चक्रजूट की जय। सर्व विघ्न विनाशन भक्ति विघ्न विनाशन नृसिंहदेव भगवान की जय। भक्त श्री प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। चारों संप्रदाय की जय। चारों आचार्य की जय। चारों धामों की जय। आकर मठरा चैतन्य मठ की जय। केशव जी गौड़ी मठ की जय। रूपनाथ गौड़ी मठ की जय। गिरधारी गौड़ी मठ की जय। रमण बिहारी गौड़ी मठ की जय। रंगनाथ गौड़ी मठ की जय। श्री दामोदर गौड़ी मठ की जय। श्री बालाजी गौड़ी मठ की जय। श्री गोपीनाथ भवन की जय। श्री राधा रमन मंदिर की जय। हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। त्रिवेणी स्वामी शिष्य भक्तिनाथ दंडी महाराज जी की जय। नाम निष्ठ संत श्री अनिरुद्धास प्रभु की जय। मठे से गोविंद की जय। धामवासी भक्त वृंद की समागत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। हरे कृष्ण। So thank you so much for so today is actually the Makar Sankranti. I think yesterday and today in South India I am in Tamil Nadu. Devotees are celebrating Pongal. So Tamil Nadu is a very big festival, and Srila Gurudev said that you have to give charity on this day to the Vaishnavas, and this is the highest charity discussion of Bhagavad-Gita, because knowledge is the greatest charity, Srila Gurudev told. So I thank all of you that on this very auspicious day we got unlimited pious merit by discussing Bhagavad-Gita of Srila Gurudev, Srila Vishnu Thakur Par, Srila Bhakti Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. We are all blessed to study this Bhagavad-Gita, and we concluded this chapter 2, which is summary study of Bhagavad-Gita. So now we are coming to Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is also very important. And then slowly we'll proceed to the Bhakti Yoga, middle 6 chapters. And then the last 6 chapters, again, Jnana Yoga. So Bhagavad Gita is the sum total of all the books. Bhagavad Gita, Kinchit Gita, Ganga Jalla, Kanika Pita. So even if we get drink one drop of this nectar of knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, our life is successful. So thank you so much. I see devotees, regular devotees plus Rashmita Didi is also here. So I welcome you back again. Please attend the classes, so that encourages us. So we are discussing systematically, reading the books of Gurudev more than explaining.
Hare
Reading
Krishna.
them.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dandavad Didi. Actually, I was in India, so it was so hectic schedule that I was not able to join any of the classes.
Oh, why?
Actually, because in India we were traveling and we were going to our just relative homes here and there, and apart from that, basically we were living in we were also visiting to the village area, so there were no internet, nothing, so it was very impossible to join from India.
No, that is good. Now you are back in United States.
Yes, Maharaji, and we have even planned to meet Gurudev, but actually we did not got any time because our schedule was so tight, and basically the kid health was not good, so we planned that we need to go back to US, but anyhow we managed to go to Puri. So
Jagannath Puri, all right.
yeah, so we just visited the Jagannath Puri Dham, but the rest, so many things were cancelled. So unfortunately, I do not got any chance to meet Gurudev.
No problem. Next time you can meet.
Yes.
And obviously,
Yes.
he gives online classes, so that is also you can attend,
Yes,
because
Maharaj.
electronic medium is so powerful now that most of the devotees in part of the world, remote part of the world, they can have conference, and they can discuss spiritual topics. So this is a very good tool. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Thank you
Maharaj.
so much.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam, Maharaj.
Dandavat. So 18th is the Shaktila Ekadashi is coming on 18th. That day everyone should fast from grains and beans. Although it is called Shakti Ekadashi, the Ekadashi is named after sesame seeds, but we as Vaishnavas, I don't think we eat sesame seeds on that day. But the day after, you can maybe mix some sesame seeds in the water and take bath. Even if you don't have sesame seeds, then next day on Dwadashi, you can say til, 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 sesame, 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 and then you can take bath. It is like bathing at the Ganges River. So generally, in the next day, on Dwadashi day, you can give the charity of sesame seeds, jaggery to the devotees. But not on Ekadashi day, don't consume sesame seeds on Ekadashi. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Danda Pranam. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna so much, Maharaj. Dhanavad Frans. Vanchika Patrivishya.
Mr.
Kripasani
Krupasani.
Vivcha. Patitana Pavani Vya Vaishnavi Vya Nono. Thank you, Maharaj, for attending and giving us this class today. And thank you, dear devotees, for attending. And
Jai
we'll
Jai.
see you all tomorrow for Madhurya Kadambini. Hare Krishna.
Dandas.
Dhanavad
Hare.
Frans.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dandas. Hare.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Dandas. Hare Krishna.